by having you say and spell your complete name.
Okay, Robert P. Thompson, P for Pyle. Do I need to spell that? P-Y-L-E. You can spell Robert, and Thompson is T-H-O-M-P-S-O-N.
And the unit that you served in the 10th Mountain with?
Company B, 86 Infantry.
And highest rank served?
What's that?
And the highest rank served in the 10th Mountain?
Well, I was a tech sergeant, but I was also acting first sergeant, but I never got the rank.
And what year did you enter the 10th?
Oh, let's see. I joined the Army in '42 when I was at Penn State, and I joined the active reserve. And a couple months later, I asked for active duty. So that would have been, I forget, it's the end of '42 or the beginning of '43.
What were you studying at Penn State?
Floriculture.
Well, you stayed true to your field.
Horticulture, yeah.
Did you have 3 letters of recommendation?
Yes. I guess after I got on active reserve, well, then I started trying to decide what I wanted to do because I'd have some choice. And that's when I decided the cavalry didn't use horses anymore, so I'd skied once or twice, to tell you the truth, and decided I'd like to join the ski troops, and I heard about it, so I went about getting my letters and told them what I needed pretty much, and that's how I got in.
What kind of letters of recommendation did you get? Who were they from?
Oh, I forget now.
Did you ever see them?
I'm not sure if I did or not.
Wouldn't you love to know what was in it?
Well, I think at that time they were glad to get anybody that was warm.
What made you want to be in the 10th Mountain Troops?
Well, I thought I liked to ski, so I thought, well, I might as well be doing something I enjoy. So the choices weren't too hard. I didn't want to be in the Navy. And I guess like a lot of people at that age, I wanted to get in.
What made you want to get in?
It just seemed to be, we were up against it. And I guess all my peers were getting in, and it seemed like the thing to do at the time.
Did you have a feeling that the 10th Mountain Division would be able to make a real difference?
I didn't really think that far ahead. You know, from my outlook then, about 18 years old or whatever I was, why, I had no idea what the 10th Mountain was until I got in there. I just knew they were out in the mountains training, and that seemed like a good place to be.
Did you have any expectations at all about what the 10th Mountain would be like?
Not really. Not really.
Had you read any of those articles about them being the elite glamour troopers?
I don't think so. Most of that kind of came later.
Oh, they were writing about you.
Yeah, right.
When you were brought up a Quaker.
Right.
And how did that affect your decision to get into the war?
Well, it didn't really affect me because I just felt that everybody ought to do his part, and I guess I'm probably not a very good Quaker. It comes right down to it.
What was the hardest part about deciding if you should fight or not, being a Quaker?
That's a hard question to ask or answer. But I guess I was a birthright Quaker, and maybe I didn't go along with all their practices.
And you felt this was worth fighting for?
Oh, yes.
How much have you shared with your kids about your 10th Mountain experiences?
Oh, not very much. I told them a good bit about Camp Hale and their training and all that, but I didn't tell them much about Italy or actual fighting and, what it was like over there. But just talking about Hale gave me a good bit to think about, I guess.
Were they impressed?
I guess so. I don't know.
Did they wonder, like, if they could do it? Once you,
Oh, I don't think it came to that, no.
or they weren't going to join up based on your...
No. I think they know a little more now, you know, what it was like. And now that they're older, well, I can talk to them a little better. But as young children, you don't talk about war experiences to them.
What was it that made you not want to tell them about the war experiences in Italy?
Oh, it's pretty gory. And actually, I didn't talk about it to anybody, really. I mean, it's only been recently, I guess, I can talk about it at all, really. It's war isn't something you really want to bring up in conversation.
Why do you think that is?
Well, it's just not a very pleasant conversation. I mean, you don't talk about death and that kind of thing either. You know, I mean, it's better left unsaid, I think.
Do you think your war experience was any gorier than anybody's else?
No, in fact, my war experience was pretty short, and there were a lot of infantrymen that went through years of war, and actually we were only in combat a short time, and I was only in combat about half that time. So, you know, we saw enough, but there were a lot of people saw a lot more.
From your point of view as growing up in a relatively remote area, was it a little shocking going into the 10th?
Oh no, not at all. I've always liked to hunt and be out in the mountains and the country. I was never had to live in a city or close to other people even.
Being a country boy, was it a little shocking to be in battle?
No, not any more so than anybody else. I think I probably had more experience as far as using firearms and camping out, and I knew how to build a fire or to make a bed, and
You knew all that before you went in.
right, which a lot of people didn't.
What did the 10th Mountain training teach you?
Oh, I guess the 10th Mountain training pretty much taught me just Army training, you know, cooperating with your other people in your squad and your platoon and company, and you know, it's not that much different than any other Army training.
How about the skiing angle?
Well, the skiing angle, I mean, you talk about the ski troops, but really, and we did ski, but basically it was Army training, and the skis got us from one place to another. And we all had to master getting downhill without wrecking too many times, but it's really pretty much infantry training.
How did you take to skiing instruction at Camp Hale?
Oh, I think I did all right. I came through it without any broken legs, and that in itself was we had a lot of casualties at Camp Hale from broken legs and frostbitten lungs, and you know, a lot of problem from the smoke there in camp, and we probably had as many casualties at Camp Hale as we did overseas. So.
I didn't know you could frostbite your lungs.
Oh yeah, if you're sucking in a lot of cold air, and you know, when you get up high, you're sucking in a lot of air, and that air doesn't have a chance to really warm up, and it's a fairly serious malady.
What do you remember about how cold it is? Can you tell me a story that's related to severely cold weather?
Well, I frostbitten, I guess, my toes and fingers, and we didn't really have warm clothes like we have now for the mountains, and we didn't have any down except in our sleeping bags, and we had heavy underwear and a wool shirt and a sweater and a parka that didn't have any insulation. That was it. And as long as you were moving around, you could keep fairly warm. But if you had to stand still long, you got cold. And a lot of people suffered a lot more than I did. I've never been one to work up a sweat much, and if you get real sweaty and then have to stand around, you really get cold. But we didn't have the gloves and boots that really kept you from freezing your feet and toes or fingers.
Do you remember a lot of standing around?
Oh, not a lot, but when you were on problem, sometimes you'd stand guard somewhere, and sometimes we just stand in our sleeping bag. And, you know, if you had to stand guard duty somewhere, why, that's about the only way you keep warm. And usually we were tactical, so you couldn't build a fire.
What was the hardest part of training?
Oh, I don't know anything that was any harder than anything else. Just getting around and hauling your heavy pack and rifle. I guess that was probably the hardest thing, climbing up those mountains.
What did it feel like to climb the mountains? What would you have on, and how did it feel?
Well, we had on our parkas, and you know, in the wintertime at least, and just slugging along. I mean, I never worried too much about making the hike, but a lot of times we'd get people to drop out and just drop out by the wayside, just couldn't make it. But I guess I just didn't have to worry about that.
When you go back to Camp Hale now and you look at the heights that you scaled with heavy packs, does it sort of impress you? Or what do you think about that?
Well, yeah, as you get older, these hills get higher and steeper. But nothing was really as steep over there at Hale as River Ridge was. When I went back there, that did really impress me, how steep that was.
When you look at it today, is it believable? Can you believe that you did it?
Yes, but you know, when you're younger, you can do those things. Makes a lot of difference when you're 18 or 19. Nothing seems impossible then.
When you looked at River Ridge recently, did you think maybe you guys were a little crazy or just a little cocky?
Well, I climbed River Ridge probably 6 or 8 times, so it got to be almost like a Sunday walk. But when I look at it now, I wonder how we did it.
And why do you wonder that?
Well, it's really steep on the side we went up.
Can you describe that route for me?
Which route?
The route that you went up?
Actually, B Company had probably the easiest route. But I was on a scouting detail for the company to choose that route. And I had a hand-picked squad and we spent about a week reconnoitering routes. And I went up A Company's route a couple times, and C Company's route at least once, and our route at least once. So ours was the easiest route. And it was just a hard climb, but it wasn't we never had to use ropes or anything.
What was the hardest route?
I guess, I'm not sure. I went up with Lieutenant McGowan on up C Company's route, or at least up a route which we reconnoitered. Now, whether they actually went up that route or not, I don't know, but there was a series of little cliffs and ledges that we had to climb. But I'm not sure they used that route when they actually attacked. A Company's route, of course, or the platoon in A Company that went up on Pizzo di Campiano, they had a hard climb the last part of it, but most of it was a pretty good trail. I took a group of officers up that route a couple of days before the attack, and of course we didn't get to the top. We just got within sight of the top, and of course that was about 2 days before the attack, I guess.
What was the officer's assessment of that route?
Oh, they were all the battalion brass. Lieutenant Ware used to be in B Company, and I don't know why he picked me to lead that platoon, but because that was really A Company's route. And I know Duesenberg in his book had Sergeant Thompson in A Company, so he had to correct that. So anyway, I'm not sure I was first scout or platoon leader, but I was the only one that in that group had been up there before. In fact, I was the only enlisted man on that patrol except for Duesenberg. He was a radio man. And I know at one point they passed word up for me to slow down, that these armchair officers couldn't keep up. So they weren't really used to out there hiking.
What did you think they thought of that route or the climb?
Well, I don't know. They didn't talk to me much about it. I was just leading the way. I was just a enlisted man. They asked me whether mules could get up there, and I said, well, I think they can get up most of the way. Yeah, they asked whether we'd get closer, and it was kind of like a cloudy day, and I told them no, we were close as we could safely go, and I felt a good bit of responsibility with all this brass behind me and me making a decision, and so I didn't want to risk, getting seen.
If it's cloudy out, what's the chances of being seen?
Oh, well, I guess if it suddenly cleared, why, we might have been under observation.
So how did the clouds play into your camouflage?
Oh, we weren't really camouflaged.
But how were the clouds part of your... can you explain to somebody who's never been there how important clouds are in terms of...
Well, if it'd been a clear day, why, wouldn't even have gotten as close as we were. And it was just kind of a overcast kind of a day, and it just kind of worked out. And I imagine if it'd been a better day, they wouldn't even have tried to go up there.
So the Germans, for somebody who's never been there, can you sort of explain how the Germans are on top and you're approaching, and how the weather plays into what the safety conditions are?
Well, of course, River Ridge was not very steep on the German side and quite steep on our side, and then at least on Pizzo di Campiano, it was very steep just before the top there, and the Germans had a real neat kind of an observation point up there that they could just look right out on Vitacanico and Belvedere, and they had like an eagle's eye view of the whole area. Of course, that's one reason why it had to be taken and held. But of course, the most of the access route up on our side, although it was steep, was pretty well covered with trees and you know, and it wasn't like a open slope.
So the weather could be your friend. Can you explain how the weather?
Well, the weather cooperated with us because not only did we have that chance for the officers to get up there, but also when we took the ridge, it had warmed up enough so that the snow wasn't very bad, and you know, it made it a lot easier for us to get up there. We really had a lot of luck, and the fact that they didn't expect us, you know, was of course to our favor too. They didn't have many men actually up there at the time we took the ridge. In fact, it wasn't that hard to take, it was hard to hold.
Why do you think they didn't need very many men up there?
Well, for one reason, they never thought anybody would try to take it. They thought they didn't need many up there. And of course, the main objective was Belvedere, and Belvedere was not very steep, really, and it was just a great big hump, you might say. But I think our division commanders, whoever made the decision, realized that unless we took Riva Ridge and held it, why, we couldn't take Belvedere. So the idea was to take Riva Ridge and deny the Germans that observation. And actually, after we took the ridge and held it, we were up there at the time that the attack on Belvedere came. We had an eagle's eye view of the whole battle for Belvedere. It was quite a sight.
What did you see?
Well, at the beginning of the battle, all the tracers were coming downhill, and we didn't see any fire going the other way. And then as the night progressed, why, it shifted over to where most of the fire was from our side, so we could tell that we'd won the battle.
Could you see they were literally facing an uphill battle?
Oh yeah, sure. I mean, you could look right down on the whole thing. It's just like you were in an airplane looking at it.
Did you ever wonder if they were going to succeed?
No, I guess we figured they would. I mean, we had a lot of confidence. It was just a question of how hard it'd be.
When you were doing your reconnaissance on Riva Ridge, was there very much snow?
Oh, not really. We didn't need skis or snowshoes or anything, and we were billeted in a little town. We stayed right in the houses during the day, but a little town right near the bottom of the valley there. And so each night we would, the hard part about it was that we had to cross a narrow bridge to get across the river down there, and we had to cross that bridge night after night. And we knew that if they ever got onto us, all they had to do was wait there at that bridge. But the Germans never seemed to come down off the ridge. They felt secure up on top, fortunately, and the only time we had a pretty bad scare, we were coming back one night and ran into another patrol that we didn't think was supposed to be where we encountered it. And we did a little cat and mouse with each patrol, kind of feeling each other out. We couldn't see well enough to tell who was who, you know, and it turns out it was one of our own that we didn't realize was supposed to be there.
Were you a little worried there?
Oh yeah, yeah, we didn't know quite whether to engage him or to try to sneak off. Or the night I went up with C companies, Lieutenant McGowan was leading that patrol, and we got close enough to the top we could actually hear the Germans walking back and forth at the top of the ridge. And his idea was that maybe we ought to, as he said, I think we can take them, he says. And I kind of talked him out of it. I said, we're supposed to be on a reconnaissance patrol, and he was a little bit too gung-ho. In fact, he was killed up there on the top of the ridge a couple days later, or a week later, I guess.
What were you thinking when you were so near the top and you could hear the Germans talking?
Well, I don't know what I thought about it. I just didn't think we ought to engage them. On that same patrol, we had a guy fall off. When we went up, we had a rope that we thought we'd use if we got into some dangerous going, and McGowan never used the rope, and on one of these little ledges or cliffs, a guy fell off, and fortunately on the ledge, it was like about a 12-foot cliff, and the ledge below it had 2 or 3 feet of soft snow, and when he fell off, why, he just hit that snow and just stuck there. And if it had been hard, he probably would have just kept on going down a series of ledges, but he never made a sound when he fell off. He just didn't even, he knew it could be heard. Sounded like somebody practicing over there.
Could you explain for somebody who's never been to Riva Ridge why the Germans thought that nobody would be able to scale the faces that you guys scaled?
Well, it was so steep that they just couldn't imagine why we would want to go up there, with any kind of force anyway. And when you consider we only had one battalion that went up there, and they had access from the other side easily, I think they probably thought if we did get up there, they could soon knock us off because we couldn't get resupplied and that kind of thing. And of course, the 10th Mountain had been up there for a while, but they're up on the line, but they didn't know our capabilities.
Did you think it was a good idea to do Riva Ridge?
Yeah. We'd been, I was on an outpost, for a couple weeks. Ahead of that, my platoon sergeant and a couple squads were in an old stone house that was kind of facing the ridge, and so we had a couple weeks to look at it and observe it. There was quite a valley between us and the ridge, but we could occasionally see a patrol pass along the top. They were a couple miles away, but you could make out activity up there, but nobody really knew how many men were up there, or I suppose they had a certain amount of intelligence about it, but I think there were fewer people actually holding it than we expected.
Because you'd had the opportunity to make so many reconnaissance runs on it, did you feel probably more confident than other people that it could be done?
Yes. It wasn't any harder than, well, maybe a little bit harder, but it was the kind of thing we used to do up at Hale all the time. The main thing was getting up there without them knowing we were coming. And if they had expected us, it would have been really tough. But as it was, that shooting sounds like it's getting closer.
Shot here.
Well, I've been shot at a few times since World War II, but I haven't been hit.
Do you want to tell me a little bit about what you were thinking when you were making the real climb up? You'd made that climb so many times before. Were you carrying additional goods or less stuff?
Oh, well, when we were reconnoitering, we just took our rifles and a little bit of ammunition, because we would just go up there and back in one evening or one night. When we attacked, we had extra ammunition, and everybody had a couple grenades. We didn't carry any food, though, which they thought that would encumber us. Actually, we got pretty hungry after we were up there a while.
does it take to climb Riva Ridge?
Oh, I think B Company was the first company up there, and I don't think it took us more than about 3 hours.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, we had a pretty good, just a fast walk, you know, but the other companies took a good bit longer. But fortunately, when we got up there, and you could verify this in some of the records, and I'm just going from memory, but I don't think when we got up there, they probably thought it was just a skirmish or a limited patrol, and I don't think they warned the other points that somebody might be coming, which was fortunate.
3 hours? Wow, that's way shorter than I expected.
I'm just guessing. But
Like,
when we started, you know, we started right at the base of the mountain. We spent one day, oh, I forget the name of the town, but actually it was across this bridge that I was telling you about. We had to cross every night when we hiked. And so we started right at the base of the mountain.
Is that right where the tram would go down to?
Right near there, yeah.
Right there.
And we started as soon as it got dark enough, you know.
So did you actually have to slow down at some point so that you would arrive at dawn? You didn't want to...
Oh, no. We wanted to arrive at night. We didn't want to arrive where they could see us. We wanted to get there before dawn.
And the point to that is?
Well, we didn't want to be seen. When you're on the offense, you go at night, and you know, they're dug in up there, and we would be targets. You know, most of the attacks are at night.
What kind of guns did they have?
What, the Germans?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, machine guns and just irregular rifles and burp guns, and they didn't have any artillery placed up on the ridge. I mean, they might have had some mortars, I'm not sure, but most of their heavier guns and mortars were behind the ridge because they could shoot over the ridge.
Because you were doing an uphill battle and you knew that several other people had tried to take Mount Belvedere or briefly had taken Mount Belvedere, you still didn't find that intimidating?
Well, I wasn't in on Belvedere. Of course, we were up on the ridge at the time, and I don't know, I think the 10th Mountain had enough confidence in their ability to do most anything, you know. We were fresh troops and gung-ho, and I don't think anybody really thought we'd fail. I guess we did hear that Belvedere had been taken and lost a couple times, but I don't think that really intimidated us.
Because you knew you were going to do it a different way.
Well, we just knew we were going to do it. I mean, I don't think anybody thought about failing. Now, maybe the officers that might have planned it might have wondered whether they made the right decisions, but that's not, enlisted men don't really get into that kind of thinking, really.
Now, you were on Route 2, right?
On what?
If you line them up, there's 4 routes. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah, we were the second route from the end of the ridge.
Can you explain what the terrain is like in relationship to the other routes?
Well, Capilbuso, which means a hat, I think, is one of the higher points. And to get from there to Riva Ridge, or to Pizzo di Campiano, you actually go down and then climb a little bit, and the Pizzo di Campiano being the end of the ridge and a very sharp and actually a very small area on top. So Capilbuso was kind of a bigger knob, you might say. There was more room up there for more enemy, but the Germans concentrated on the point of the ridge. That's where they had their observation point. And the other points were more outposts just to actually Capablanca was probably the easiest place for them to reinforce because you can drive vehicles from the German side right near the top. So that would be their kind of base of operations as far as counterattacking or bringing any kind of a large force up.
How many hundreds of yards would it be from Route 1 to Route 2?
I'm guessing that it was probably about a mile, but I'm just guessing.
Now, you at one point made the move down to...
Yes, when the Lieutenant Luce's platoon from A Company took Pizzo di Campiano the night of the attack. But then the next day, they suffered a couple counterattacks the first day, so the first platoon of B Company and my squad from the second platoon and one machine gun squad from our heavy weapons platoon were sent from Capablanca to relieve A Company's group. So we actually made that climb down to Pizzo di Campiano. And as we approached it, there's kind of a saddle between and a very sharp little ridge as we approached. And there were Germans attacking the A Company platoon at the time we came down there. And we opened fire on them and drove them off because they were kind of in a pincher right there. They were getting fire from the point of the ridge and from us coming from behind. And about that time, Colonel Hampton showed up, and my squad was leading the platoon. Why, I don't know, but I guess because I'd been up there before. Anyway, Colonel Hampton wondered what the holdup was. And he had me deploy my squad on a flank down on the steep slope. And I mean, it's steep there and rocky, and they were having a hard time getting along. And he seemed to think we were not going fast enough. So I told him if we got some food up here to these guys, maybe they'd do better. And he kind of made me a little sore, to tell you the truth. After the Germans had gone, you know, why he shows up to theoretically push us along a little faster. And anyway, since I was a squad leader, I was up on the knife edge of the ridge, had easy going, and he followed along behind me. And of course, he got credit for relieving A Company, but actually a lieutenant colonel had no business being there in the first place.
I have to stop and change tapes real quick.